The executioner called up the boy. His mother turned him over. Years abjured, she kissed him once, and kissing said, "Goodbye, my precious sweetest one. When you are come into the blessed realm of Christ, remember me, my advocate, who was my son." Those were her words. Then, as the headsman's sword blade fell upon the little neck, the woman, who knew well the Psalms, sang out a hymn, a song of David. "Precious in the sight of God is one who dies his saint. He is your servant, and your faithful handmaid's son." Repeating this, she spread her robe and reached beneath the sword stroke and the blood to catch with her own hands the stream that burst in gushes from the veins that bled, to catch the small round head whose mouth drew one last breath. She caught it and then pressed it to her loving breast. So says Prudentius in his monumental 4th century work, Peristephanon. Here, Prudentius uses the rhetorical tool Ekphrasis to build a Christian worldview into a people laboring to coexist with their Roman halves, instilling a Christian martyrdom and sacrificial identity through exacting visualization and verbal physicality. Today, a vigorous Christian worldview is more important than ever, but scholars struggle to clearly define the Christian against ever-expanding volumes of secular materialism. George Marsden's multidimensional portrait of fundamentalism and Jay Green's Christian historiography demand an intellectualism that sadly remains denominationally isolated. How can Christian worldview be extended into pedagogical principles of content, delivery, and evaluation? While Mary Quinn insists learners not only be given options where they can critically evaluate their own worldview assumptions against their culture, John Harlow suggests educators adopt Cyril Hooley's 4 components of education to fully embrace the learner, understanding the nature of the learner, the social milieu in which the learner operates, and the physical milieu in which the learner exists, as well as evaluating teaching and learning techniques best for each learner. Lalitha Vasudevan introduced the concept of digital geography, or what Heidi Campbell later contextualized as multi-site reality, the growing recognition between online and offline contexts. Kyle Oliver contends, then, that these digital geographies, as navigated by embodied persons with human identities, must be conceptually integrated into both residential and online learning experiences. This is yet again another example of instilling Christian worldview into pedagogy. In this way, when the Christian worldview ensconces with education, learning transforms into an exploration of individuality. As Psalm 139 states, "All are fearfully and wonderfully made. All are made in the imago Dei, carefully sculpted from clay by divine hands." But what happens when a different worldview, such as secular materialism, bonds with educational pedagogy? Matt Crosland, while purporting to explore pedagogical self-determination, or what he termed self-mapped learning pathways, ends up transforming learner agency from something relational between instructor and student into a series of strategies that separate the instructor and student. He deduces from 42,828 clickstream data points a series of 4 strategies based on learner engagement levels, and then places those learners based on their clickstreams into isolated learning groups with generalized presuppositions about inherent intellectual abilities and potential. Crosland's strategy is just another example of practical scientism. Scientism as a contemporary idea was described by Indian Prime Minister Nehru in 1991 as, "It is science alone that can solve the problems of hunger and poverty. At every turn we seek its aid. The future belongs to science, and to those who make friends with science." Mikhail Stenmark then proposed in 1997 a taxonomy of scientism, which included various kinds: academic internal, academic external, methodological, epistemic, rationalistic, ontological, axiological, comprehensive, and even redemptive scientism. The rise of scientism came from a long line of thinkers who sought to divorce intellectualism from the church, starting with Francis Bacon, who in his Novum Organum said that science should be used for the betterment of mankind. Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, in his Philosophie zoologique, argued that animal life self-transmuted from microscopic infusorians to more complex forms. Lamarck was influential in the life of Charles Darwin, who then took up the mantle of natural history and, springing from Robert Grant's theory that evolution was a slow migration from the poles, insisted that humans closest to the poles were worse than domesticated dogs. Hence, Darwin was able to scientifically prove that man was not created in the image of God, but was just a curious and chaotic mistake. Scientism demands a robust response from Christian scholars. In Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels, his hero visits the floating kingdom of Laputa, governed by world-weary scientists who use scientific theories to rule tyrannically over the hapless population. If we as educators do not understand the power of formulating and establishing a robust Christian worldview in our teaching, then we have no one to blame but ourselves for what comes after.